Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sprouts LinkedIn Live. I'm Avi. I'm the co founder here at Sprouts.ai. And we have a very special guest today with us, Stephen. And we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is cold outreach isn't dead, modern ABM strategy that's actually convert. Uh, and to do so, we have a very special guest, as I told you before, Stephen. He's head of growth at Wiremo and marketing at Platforce. He is a fractional growth and marketing strategist who specializes in ABM and demand generation. He has delivered remarkable research results such as achieving 500x ROI for a Belgium tech startup in just 3 months. Stephen combines social selling, ABM, and very innovative demand generation techniques to drive maximum ROI and scales uh, sales for tech brands. His approach has positioned him as a leader in B2B marketing and growth space. Stephen, thank you so much for taking out time and talking to us. Really appreciate it.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for hosting me. I'm really pleased. You see, I'm blushing already. So, uh,
Yeah,
um, seems like the Oscars. The marketing Oscars.
yeah.
Uh,
Not really, but really, we all are looking forward to like having a very interesting conversations here, Stephen. And if I have to deep dive directly, uh, would everybody here would like to know? Can you just walk us through your journey? What has been your journey so far? How did you get started in growth marketing? And currently, how is it going for you? Right? Like past to present, how the journey has been. And if you can just walk us through that, that will be really helpful.
sure. So I started actually one of the. Okay, so I'll start with my family. My family is very entrepreneurial, and I chose marketing as something I wanted to do as a for a living in the university. So I studied actually marketing and logistics. That's how it was called back then. And I read Philip Kotler's book, basically marketing, and it's more of an unusual case since I'm seeing more people switch to marketing from something else. Um, so I started with growth marketing, I think in 2013, maybe 14. I didn't know much about it, but then there used to be this guy, Sean Ellis, and he coined the term growth marketing and then growth hacking. And I really like the resources he's brought, but unfortunately they were not really like technical. So you could see that there is this thing called growth marketing, growth hacking, and you would have like a certain framework such as the two pizza review, for example. So you would review experiments with, let's say, 4 or 5 people. That much you can feed two pizzas basically, or you would have the growth sprints, which would be basically the same as a development sprint in more or less, right? And then experiment prioritization that all brought a little bit of science, but I still had questions about practical growth marketing. And then I went to I remember like today I went to San Diego, and that's where I met a few people from HubSpot and a few people from Skyscanner, and that's where my eyes opened. And
Mhm.
I realized that beyond growth marketing, there is actual practical growth hacking, and that's when I got into Bump. And if you remember, yeah, remember they had these like books, and then I went through the books I think one night, and then I read like how to practically scrape websites. It was the early days of LinkedIn. It was the early days of all these like Phantom Busters, Texao, all these platforms, and then people were more receptive to cold emailing back then. So you could literally grow like hockey stick growth through email, and it was amazing how some companies like grew at that time. And then I was working at a startup at that time, and then after that, I joined a growth hacking agency called Hackaboo, described as Hack a Business. It was in Vienna, Austria, and there was a great crowd there. So we worked on a lot of projects back there. In short, this is how basically I joined growth marketing, growth hacking, and I'm still with it right now. Still married, and counting.
Got it. Got it. No, that's a pretty impressive journey, Stephen, I must say. And you have worn multiple hats and did a lot of range of work, right? Growth hacking, growth marketing. One of the key things which I'm very curious to learn is you have helped a company which is with a 500x ROI for a tech brand, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, what are the key gaps you have identified when you started working with them, either on the brand side or the existing approach they are doing, right? How did you address them and make their ABM and demand generation truly effective? And that has translated into 500x of ROI. So,
Yeah.
if you can throw some light on that, Stephen, because that's a uh, pretty impressive impact. And given a chance, we all would like to get something out of it and implement it if given the chance, of course.
Awesome. Of course. Yeah. So, so first of all, when you look into a potential market that you're targeting, you should look into the market maturity. So at that time, in this particular case, it was an aviation, and it was a drone company, drone like platform, sort of a tech brand. And so our targets were like aviation companies, like companies who would use drones and stuff like that, and like around that area. And considering that they're although they are doing some pretty technical things, their martech maturity, their maturity in terms of tech was not really high. They weren't using even CRMs, a lot of them, so we had to go from the very basics. So I started when I built that company up. It wasn't in a partnership with Andrew Zinkevich, who has a resource called Full Funnel IO. He teaches ABM. Um, so we first of all we focused on the low hanging fruits, which was well, I went through their tracking, made sure that we track everything. Then I looked at how what's their current closure rate, how what's the sales cycle, how well are they closing clients, what's their percentage of closure. So I think one of my first steps there was actually creating a list of sales enablement documents. So after the sales call, they would send a list of sales enablement documents like technical, POC, technical documentation, roadmap, like different, like a business case, and that helped a lot with increase already on one end the closure rates, right? So before you build ABM and demand gen, you can tweak a little bit other things in the across the channel that will bring actually are low hanging fruits. They could bring more revenue. So churn is one of them. Another one is that buyer/sales enablement. And then after I did that, well, actually I did that in parallel. We built an ABM and demand gen machine for them. At that time it was so we had the idea that like the innovation in that industry in particular, there were a lot of pioneers who, like aviation pioneers and pioneers in terms of UAV, like manned air vehicles, like drones and all of things combined. And nobody spoke about them. There wasn't media that didn't really cover them. So we decided that we want to build a media machine. So we it was we started like a podcast for focused in particular on a particular region. Based on our sales data, we saw that South Africa and South Europe were in particular some good markets for us because they had a higher closure rate. Let's say somewhere in between 25 to 35% they would close from a demo to a customer. So we looked at those markets and we launched in those markets. We went through companies that could be a potential fit, and we created some sort of like a list. And that's where we married Dimension with ABM, because when we sent them the invitation to come to our podcast, we sent them a handwritten note basically
Oh,
to come
lovely.
and yeah, come and join us again, because there were like you need to understand we prioritized them a lot. So, pardon me, like we prioritized the shit out of it. Okay, so instead we filtered every and each piece and bit that would show us that these companies either have demand or they're a better fit for us. And then the better the better results we had, the better was the model. For example, we would exclude, if you talk about demand gen, like, but in particular ABM here, we excluded companies who did not have a CTO. Why? Simply because a CTO would be, it means that the possibility that they will have a budget is smaller, and the possibility that they will can afford us is smaller. So the CEO of the company might not be able to take the decision himself. The decision will be taken longer, and so on. That's just one example of how we excluded and it helped us with our ABM there. So we did, just to summarize, we did a podcast, an industry podcast focused on these industries. We had around 50 companies in South Africa, in on the African continent, and we had maybe 20, 30 companies in South and Southern Europe. We interviewed. We ended up interviewing around 30 to 40 of the South of the African was that companies, and maybe 20 companies in Europe, and the results were amazing. Like in fact, people were so desperate for attention that they were like, "Wow, like nobody builds anything for us. Like there is media." And it was so great that we connected. There was another podcast at that time. Um, it was around drones, and we actually we co-wrote a book with them. So we gave them information for a book, and we were one of the authors for the book. The founder of the company I was working with, and it brought a lot of light for us. It was like really sort of like resource based, like really ROI oriented ABM, because after the call we would send them a statuette with like a drone, or a plane. It would be really cool because they would be like, yeah, I got this, like I went on a podcast and I got this whole stuff. It would be personalized, and
Okay,
it worked well.
got it, got it. No, that's a beautiful way to get started. Stephen, it's more of a clarifying question. You talked about market maturity, uh, which
Yeah.
means that there are already players in that market, is what you meant, or and
Yes.
I believe that if market maturity is not there, in that case you are creating a category that is the difference. Is that fair statement, right?
Yeah, yes, yes. I was talking more about like marketing maturity in terms of industry. Some industries are
Okay.
more tech, they're more open to tech. Some industries like oil and gas, for example, or some companies who produce industrial equipment, for example, like grinders, meat grinders. They are
Understood.
less techy. So it matters a lot on your ABM approach. Matters a lot on depending on is the company techy or not.
Got it. Got it. No, I'm much clearer now. Stephen, you talked about a very interesting channel, which is podcast, right? Not many companies, which at least I have come across, who efficiently use this, right? Because podcast is like it comes slightly later in the marketing journey for many companies, or they do not use this efficiently. Uh, I think definitely looking at this, we should definitely think of using this channel more efficiently. What are the other channels you recommend that one should focus on? And can you walk through some other examples which are like very niche channel and has given like lot of ROIs, right? Like one is podcast, of course, but what are the other channels? And if you can throw some lights on what channels we should prioritize when running a successful ABM and demand generation campaigns.
I would say anything that right now I'm seeing a lot of AI in the market. So I would say anything so people are a little bit like, oh, there is like another outreach. So anything that is physical would make sense. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right now, like let's say events and conferences would work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, communities. So I'm
Okay.
seeing many companies right now try to build modes in terms of communities because their product gets copied a lot. Let's say RB2B, and they were one of the pioneers in the a visitor identifier space. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're trying to build a moat with their content, which and their moat with their community. So I think anything like communities, associations, some very niche. If you're looking into like industries such as HVAC or like construction, some very niche um, media resources like podcasts or like very small influencer or like a magazine that is read like I don't know by like 20
Hmm.
people. Those are like some of the low, very very low hanging fruits that you might leverage to close, and they are not. I wouldn't say they're very expensive. I mean, depending what you call expensive. For example, in the cybersecurity space, which is extremely
Mm-hmm.
competitive, one it's a it's bloody red ocean there. Like for example, there anything that is under $3,000 per publication is cheap. So depending on what you call. Again, I would say you can do demand gen. The thing is that demand gen and ABM mentality, they're a little bit different. ABM focuses on customer who are not in the market right now. So it's like you just select the companies. You don't have any sort of. It's good if you have intent and you know if they're in the buying mode. But if you don't know, then it's fine too.
Got.
And on the other side, demand gen is more focused on creating demand right now. So you should come with some intent triggers.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. One of the thing, Stephen, you we were going through your LinkedIn post, and we realized that you posted a very interesting stuff, which at least like got my attention, of course, which is testing small, failing fast, and scaling that works. Right now, can you share some real life example of where you applied this approach successfully, and if there is some methodology or framework one should follow, right? uh, how should one think about this particular piece which you have called out?
Sure. So I think scaling fast and failing fast, pivoting fast. I think it's a mantra that a lot of entrepreneurs use nowadays, especially those who are into AI or they're dealing with AI, because you can copy a product and just launch in seconds, maybe days, in comparison with what you could before. Um, in terms of using the experiment, um, for example, again, I'll give you an example from what I've done. This ABM campaign, we scaled it in from zero to hero in like 4 weeks, basically 5 weeks, right? Usually, ABM campaigns, when we talk about enterprise and the enterprise B2B SaaS or like B2B, it takes months to start an ABM campaign and a motion because until you figure out who what to target, all these things, it takes time. But like this was in like very fast. Other ways, it comes to like product launch. So if you have nowadays you don't even need like a product. You can build a prototype with AI, and let's say in a few days. And if that prototype has a good market fit, I mean, your best guess is just to have interviews with potential customers without even like selling on the first meeting. For example, I've worked with a company called Swan AI. The the owner is Amos, one of the founders, and they've scaled really really fast to really really fast. They have technically a platform which is similar to our B2B, but they want to build a platform which you can also use for messaging as well, not only identify visitors. So what they did, they tried a few modes, and one of them was community, the other one was posting on LinkedIn, the third one was cold emailing, and they've created it via cold emailing because they figured out very early on they figured a good product market fit and a very good message, and they're very strategic. I wanna clap for Amos here because they focused on a few niches that worked for them, like digital agencies, and they used cold email to scale, and they scaled really fast. Like I'm talking about a few hundred demos in a month, like for one
Wow.
person. Yeah, so It worked really well for them, but they had to work a lot to make it work. So when someone says cold emailing that is dead, I said yes, you are wrong. Just because you don't know how to cook it, it doesn't mean that it's dead. If you do it right, it might take a lot of effort, and you might want to invest into other channels. But cold emailing can work. So does cold calling and other things. Um, it just like you just a good Indian is a dead Indian. An Indian can be tasty. You just don't know how to cook it. I mean, American Indians. That's a sorry.
Yeah.
That's a very old joke, basically.
Got it. Got it. Stephen, this is a very interesting point, right? Like, I I have, like, in last 3 months might have spoken to at least, if not more, 50 plus marketeers, and everyone said that cold email or cold outreach doesn't work, right? And what are some pro tips you would like to give to them, saying that if they are starting or they have to look at in a very different way to run this cold email campaigns, what are some 2 to 3 things they should consider when running a cold email campaign? Is it like more of audience they are selecting wrong, or messaging, or timing, right? Or there might be something else. What are some pro tips you would like to share to make this as a successful campaign?
So my success with cold emailing comes from, first of all, iteration on both at least no okay iteration on knowing the audience, knowing your ICP very well, and second is messaging your ICP.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to timing, I usually make the cold emailing audiences, I make at least, so because of AI now you have to, the sequences have to be like really long. I'm talking about the you have email one, email two, email three. So I personally make them 3 months long. So the
Mm-hmm.
cold email sequence, because maybe 3 months, you I would check your how long is your sales cycle and make it as at least as long as your sales cycle is, because then it's going to make sense that if the buyer is not even in the market right now, in 3 months, maybe they'll be in the consideration stage or in the awareness stage, and they understand they actually have a problem. Because when you send a cold email, usually you don't know where in what stage of the journey are they, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I focus one, right? Make sure technically you're bulletproof. Like use bulletproof domains, warm them up. Make sure you have to be really really brutal with taking out the emails which are when you don't have a very good match rate in terms of emails. Obviously you're going to use a job contact or hunter or anything like that. I personally don't use anything that has a match rate less than 60%, 70% nowadays. um, Cleaning your lists regularly, so I make sure that I put an unsubscribe link right up there in the very top, so people unsubscribe right away, to keep the list clean. Then and then it's about like being relevant. Like nobody cares about personalization anymore, I would say, because everyone's like, oh, I saw your post on LinkedIn, and I'm like, and what, you know, like does it is it it has no effect on my life. Yeah, you saw the post, but then, so I would say you need a ton of triggers, like across the journey. As I said, if we're talking about 3 months, then you want to send maybe 10 emails across 3 months, and then you want to use different triggers to catch me up. So I think the quality of your data is the most important part here. Like how are you quality and segmentation, how are you segmenting those leads? So like clay in particularly is good in data research, but you always have to recheck it manually, because someone, like I was just talking to someone and they were shitting on clay because it's maybe even not clay but their vendors, the data you get from their vendors third party data is not very accurate. And
Hmm.
sometimes yeah, and clay again, it's not an automation, so you end up with sequences which sometimes don't make sense. So I would make like to stay relevant, maybe it would create a ton out of my list, which is, I don't know, let's say I have a 5,000 people list. Out of 5,000 people list, I would enrich the list like as much as I can using, let's say, Clay or Make.com. Use different vendors to get as much data as I can around those people. Like you can use Trigify, you can use Phantom Buster, you can use Dexal to get like missing pieces. So you can create a lot of sub segments, and then when you deliver those sub segments, then your cold mailing will work because then you make it really relevant for them. For example, with use cases in that particular industry, like they're in the aviation space, you have a client in the aviation space, and then that particular sequence would be sent only to five companies, but then you make it like really relevant. And with AI, of course, you can customize these things. But to be honest, I'm seeing on LinkedIn a lot of these like fan posts. Oh, like I made $900,000 in pipeline. And I'm like, okay, great, you made like pipeline, but sometimes I doubt that because I look at those sequences and like how they enrich data, and I'm like, boy, you just got lucky. You just got lucky, and then in a more mature market where there's competition, there's like gang, where let's say we're talking about like real estate software, or even martech, like like you'd be killed. You'd be like that, So
Okay.
yeah, did I explain more or less what I meant?
Yeah, yeah. Got the idea. So what you're saying is focus on data. The data should be clean. Create some really smart segments, and on the messaging side, just be very relevant. And that is when the magic happens. Stephen, there is a lot of like lot of tool stack which has come up, and because of AI, there are a lot of these agents which are making a lot of noise, like tools with agents. What are your thoughts on, are these agents really AI agents for outbound, especially on the cold outbound? Are they creating impact, or are they creating like a lot of noise? What are your thoughts or 2 cents on this?
So with the up and coming AI, I think there is a thing called human in the loop. I wouldn't allow the AI build and send a sequence itself because you need a human in the loop to go and check through the data, because then it's going to
Mhm.
look like BS. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. If you put in
Yeah,
garbage data and you let AI do its own stuff, then it's gonna, then you're gonna lose customers, or you will not gain customers, well, which is more or less equal. Um, so I would say I personally use like make.com. I use a little bit of Clay, but then again, it's up to the question is how do you make your research? You can do your research like with VAs, for example. If we talk about ABM, I use a mixture of VAs and Clay, because just simply Clay alone will not make it. Of course, the data is there, but ABM is more about the research. So I the mantra I follow is that your ABM campaigns are as good as the research you've made about your accounts.
of that, of that.
Um,
Yep,
so
yep. I completely echo with this thought that your campaigns are as good as how well researched your accounts are, and yeah, completely agree. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and Stephen, like a follow on to that, right? Like, just want to pick your brains on, let's say, a company which is starting with ABM campaigns, newbies to starting ABM campaigns and struggling to see results. What advice would you like to give to them? Are there some common mistakes they are making they should avoid, or are they not following some playbook which they should focus on? But what is your mantra for building a scalable ABM strategy?
well, there is no scalable. There is no scalable ABM strategy if you don't have a successful pilot. So first of all, don't focus on covering all of your cases. Focus on the pilot. Second is low hanging fruit, and low hanging fruit is that it's best if you use ABM on already like customers that you need to reactivate, or someone who more or less knows your brand. That's where ABM is the most efficient. Um, I would say I would start with that because you want to like what you as a, let's say, marketer or like ABM owner, do you want to show a success story early on? So I would focus one on customers or ex-customers or customers you didn't close that you want to reactivate. That would be my first priority. Second is I would um I would do a pilot, of course. I wouldn't make maybe the first ABM campaign bigger than maybe 10, 15 account stops, because then you can learn. on how to make the research, and then you can automate the research. Basically, we just discussed AI. If you want to do it, of course, scale. Third is like, well, be original, be authentic. Like everyone and their grandmother doing AI now, and then obviously it would be like, you'll get a lot of emails that, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post, or hey, I saw you work at Luck Boosters. Okay, and what?
Got it.
Um, so if there's any small detail that that can give me a sense that you actually checked. For example, you prepared for this interview, you pulled out a few posts that even I forgot about, and that was
Yeah,
surprising. So if this would be in an ABM in an ABM sequence, then it certainly would attract my attention, right? So like, kudos to you guys that you did a good research. Like if you do this research in an ABM study, you will be successful sooner or later.
got it. Got it. So, point taken. I think, and completely echo with thought that do your research that will create an impact on staying relevant and eventually start getting results. Stephen, we are like about time, but one last question before you drop off is what is your go-to AI tech stack for marketing and demand gen in 2025? What do you recommend?
I would obviously go with SproutsAI.
Oh, thanks for those kind words. And obviously, that's a very good choice.
I would
Yeah.
go with SproutsAI, which would unify, I guess, the GTM function across the organization. I would go with something like Dream Data or Hacky Stack. Of course, Dream Data is for free, so has a free tier. I would use that. Hacky Stack is not, but I think their data is maybe a little bit better, but they're pricey. Then use something for visitor identification like Vector or Swan AI or like RB2B, and
Mhm.
then doing some sort of an outreach, or at least keeping your website visitors warm in a way. Um, and maybe a sales, like if I'm really humble, maybe two more. That would be use something like Make.com or Clay, and then in Clay you have like hundreds of vendors for the data for the outreach, and Make.com you can automate certain parts of your outreach as well. Um, let's say you can build an expansion playbook. Let's say you have companies where you're working only with one department, but you want to work with multiple departments. But then, with, for example, with Make.com, you can create a playbook focused on all the other departments. Like refer, make a small case study and stuff. And that can be automated with, like, let's say Make.com and Lemlist or Reply or any of these like outreach tools. And maybe a sales buyer enablement tool. That could be DocSend or, like, I don't know. There's a ton of them on market. Paperflight is a good one.
Got
Um,
it. Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great list. Yeah. With that, Stephen, thank you so much. We are about the end of the show, and I'm personally taking away a lot of learnings, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to implement those in our go-to-market motion, how we run cold emails, how we think about running ABM campaigns, and more. I'm pretty sure everyone here has enjoyed it. And thank you so much for taking out time and talking to everyone here. And we will connect soon, Stephen. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. It was my pleasure, guys. Have a good day, BMing, right?